Did you know that the federal minimum wage in the United States of $7.25 per hour has not been increased since 2009? The United States Department of Labor should raise the federal minimum wage. The federal minimum wage is a critical policy that affects millions of low-wage workers across the United States. The current minimum wage is not enough for these workers to make ends meet. When talking about raising the federal minimum wage, it is first most important to understand the problems that are posed by the current one. For most people, working for the minimum wage does not give them a living wage. The current wage is not adjusted for inflation. According to an article published by the Human Rights Group in 2014, it states, the federal minimum wage is often criticized because it is not indexed or adjusted annually for inflation, thus decreasing minimum wage workers' purchasing power over time. Furthermore, it continues, a full-time worker earning the federal minimum wage currently makes $7.25 per hour or $15,080 annually. While this salary does place him or her above the poverty line for an individual, it places them significantly below the poverty line for a family of four if he or she was to be sole provider for that family. On another note, the current federal minimum wage has also not kept up with the rising cost of living. According to Adams in 2017, published in the Business and Society Review, he shares, not surprisingly, given the inability of minimum wage workers to maintain an adequate standard of living on minimum wage earnings, many are forced to rely wholly or in part on government assistance programs. These government assistance programs could include food stamps or housing subsidies, along with many more. So now that I've shared with you some of the problems that are caused and hold these people back from fully participating in society, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it separates them from others in society. The lack of a higher minimum wage results in more income inequality and more disparities in wealth. The gap between the rich and the poor continues to widen. According to Litwin in 2015, published in the Coppola Scholarship at Gettysburg College, he shares, since 1979, the wealthiest 0.1% of Americans have received 20% of all increases in income. This signals a massive growth in the economy for only a small number of people, while the majority of the population is suffering from very little, if any, growth in their own incomes. The federal minimum wage is a very closely interconnected issue with the gender wage gap. This is because women are disproportionately represented in low-wage jobs, and therefore, as a result, are more likely to be affected by changes to the current minimum wage. According to Rope in 2021, published by Miss Magazine, she shares, women make up 2/3 of the nearly 20 million workers in low-wage jobs, such as childcare, home care, and grocery store cashiers. She continues on when she says that states that pay at least $10 per hour have a gender wage gap that is 17% smaller than states that pay the federal minimum wage. Now that I've told you about the main problems that are caused by the current minimum wage, I'm going to propose to you a possible solution that I think the Department of Labor could put in place. My solution is a revamped version loosely based on the Raise the Wage Act of 2021. This act was proposed to Congress and offered a plan to gradually increase the minimum wage over the course of 5 years. The United States Department of Labor should raise the federal minimum wage. The department would start by gradually increasing the minimum wage to $15 over the next 5 years. According to Cooper, McIver, and Zipper in 2021, published in the Economic Policy Institute, they state, the national minimum wage increases in 5 steps over 5 years, beginning with an increase to $9.50 this year and ending with a $15 minimum wage. Following this implementation of this minimum wage plan and the gradual increase, the wage will then start to automatically adjust and increase to avoid becoming stagnant again like it has been for the last 14 years. Again, from that same article by Cooper, McIver, and Zipper, they share, each year following 2025, the minimum wage would automatically increase with in line with changes in the median hourly wage and the up income. I am fully confident that this plan will work and be successful. There has been proof that increasing the minimum wage results in causing poverty and income inequality to decline. Based on a study done in San Francisco, California, where they analyzed closely a rise in the citywide minimum wage and the effects it had on the economy, Dube, Nadeau, and Reek reported in 2007 in the ILR review, the authors find that the policy increased worker pay and compressed wage inequality, but did not create any detectable employment loss. This is a prime example of how when you gradually increase the minimum wage over a period of time, that it does not have any harmful effects on the economy. Raising the minimum wage often scares people and causes them to raise concerns about about how it could increase the unemployment rate. On another note, research has shown that raising the minimum wage would make it so more low-wage workers can keep up with the rising cost of living. From again, Cooper, McIver, and Zibber, they shared, raising the minimum wage to $15 would help ensure that low-wage workers are paid enough to cover basic living expenses. For example, a wage providing a modest yet adequate standard of living. Obviously, for this plan to work, it will need more money as the wage will be more than doubled over the next 5 years. My hope is that with a higher wage, less people will qualify and need to rely on government assistance programs such as food stamps, which I mentioned earlier. As a result, the expenses that the government normally allocates towards these programs could then be put towards employers in helping them maintain the higher wages. Today I've shared with you the main problems that are caused by the current minimum wage for millions of low-wage workers across the country. I've also told you about a possible solution that I believe the Department of Labor could successfully implement to better support these people. The United States Department of Labor should raise the federal minimum wage. A higher minimum wage would result in reducing income inequality and making sure that more low-wage workers can maintain a living wage. It is time for policymakers to take action and ensure that workers are being paid a fair wage for the work that they do. We can ourselves put pressure on these policymakers by reaching out to our local representatives along with reaching out to the Department of Labor, and finally, refusing to accept jobs that only pay a federal minimum wage so they can see that this is unacceptable and an unsustainable way to live. Thank you.